Wow, the AI world is just moving so fast. It's incredible, really. I mean, it seems like just yesterday we were amazed by AI that could hold a simple conversation.
Right.
And now these things are doing things straight out of science fiction. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So today we're diving deep into the latest and greatest. We're talking about Google's brand new Gemini 2.5 and OpenAI's GPT-4o, focusing on that incredible image generation.
It's really fascinating stuff, right?
It is.
Yeah. Google's calling Gemini 2.5 their most intelligent AI yet, especially with its reasoning and coding abilities.
Yeah.
And then OpenAI's GPT-4o is blowing everyone away with its ability to create beautiful and, more importantly, useful images, all right there in the language model. It's pretty impressive.
It is. So our mission today is to cut through all the hype
Right.
and really get to the bottom of what these advancements mean for the future, for you, for me, and for everyone else interacting with AI.
It's the big question.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it with Gemini 2.5. Google is calling this a thinking model, which is a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
What does that even mean, beyond just being a little bit faster or having more data?
Right. Right. Well, that thinking model label is a big deal.
Right.
When we talk about AI reasoning, we're talking about going beyond just recognizing patterns or spitting out memorized facts. It's about really understanding the information, being able to draw conclusions, grasp the context, all the little details and nuances. And ultimately, it's about making decisions based on that deep understanding. It's not just about knowing stuff. It's about knowing why.
So it's like instead of just saying the sky is blue, it could explain why the sky is blue.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. For a while now, researchers have been pushing AI towards that level of understanding, using techniques like reinforcement learning and, this thing called chain of thought prompting, where the AI kind of shows its work step by step.
Interesting.
Google's Gemini 2.0 flash thinking, that was a step in the right direction.
Okay.
But Gemini 2.5, this looks like a giant leap forward.
So what's changed? What's the secret sauce that makes it think so much better?
Well, the really cool thing is that Gemini 2.5 achieves this enhanced reasoning in two ways. First, they've significantly improved the base model, like the foundation of the AI. And second, they're using much more sophisticated techniques after the initial training. And what's even more exciting is that Google says these thinking capabilities are being baked right into the core of their future models. That's a huge shift in how they're approaching AI development.
Building it in from the ground up
Exactly.
makes sense for a real fundamental change.
Yeah.
Now, the first version we're seeing is Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental. So it sounds like it's still in its early stages.
Okay. It's like a sneak peek.
Okay, what's the deal with this initial release?
So think of it like the first demo of this next generation AI. And let me tell you, it's turning heads. It recently shot straight to the top of the El Marino leaderboard. And, that's not just some random ranking. It's based on how real people actually experience the AI and how helpful and high quality they find the responses. So to hit that #1 spot, and by a good margin, tells us it's not just acing the technical test, it's actually creating outputs that people find truly insightful. And there's even a certain quality to its style that users are picking up on.
So it's not just brute force power, it's also about how well it communicates and reasons in a way that we, as humans, can relate to.
Precisely. But don't underestimate the power either. Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental is also killing it in areas like coding, math, and science. These are fields that require serious brain power, Just memorizing facts won't cut it here.
That's really impressive. Now, let's say our listeners want to see this thing in action. Where can they go to try it out?
Well, right now, the best place to experience it is through Google AI Studio. It's perfect for developers and anyone who loves tinkering with the latest AI tech. And it's also available in the Gemini app if you have a Gemini Advanced subscription. Looking ahead, Google says they're going to integrate Gemini 2.5 into their Vertex AI platform, which is their enterprise-level offering. They've also mentioned pricing for larger-scale use is coming soon, so it's clear they're preparing for wider adoption in the real world.
So a strategic rollout, starting with the tech-savvy crowd.
Right.
All right, let's break down this enhanced reasoning thing with Gemini 2.5 Pro. What does that actually look like in practice?
The material highlights that it's achieving top scores across all sorts of standardized reasoning benchmarks. And here's the kicker. It's doing this without relying on those resource-heavy test time techniques, where the model generates multiple answers and then picks the most common one. It's not doing that. It's figuring things out more directly, which points to a real improvement in its core ability to think logically.
Right. And it's not just general reasoning, it's excelling in some seriously demanding fields.
Exactly. It's at the top of the game in math and science benchmarks like GPQA and AME 2025, which are notoriously difficult. But the stat that really blew me away is its score on humanity's last exam.
Yeah.
It got 18.8%, and it did that without using any external tools or calculators.
Left.
That's wild.
18.8%.
Yeah,
On a test designed to challenge the brightest human minds.
that's right. This data set was specifically created to push the absolute limits of human knowledge and complex reasoning.
Wow, that really gives you a sense of just how powerful this reasoning capability is. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Gemini 2.5's advanced coding abilities.
Where?
AI is making incredible progress there too.
Absolutely. Google is saying there's a huge leap in coding skill compared to the previous Gemini 2.0 model.
Okay.
They're describing Gemini 2.5 Pro as incredibly good at building visually appealing web apps and what they're calling agentic code applications.
Agentic code applications.
Right. Think of it like code that doesn't just blindly follow commands. It actually analyzes the situation, makes decisions, and takes actions to achieve a goal.
Interesting.
Almost like a little software agent working for you.
Yeah,
And it's also really good at transforming and editing code, which is a godsend for developers.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, they're not just making these claims without any proof, are they?
No, they're not. On the SW Bench verified benchmark, which is kind of the gold standard for judging an AI's ability to do real-world software engineering tasks on its own, Gemini 2.5 Pro scored a whopping 63.8% using a custom agent setup. That's incredibly high in a field where AI has historically struggled.
That is impressive. You know, there was one example in the material that really caught my eye. Being able to create a full-fledged video game from just a single line of text. I mean, is that even possible?
I know it sounds like science fiction, right?
Yeah.
But it's a perfect example of how powerful this combination of enhanced reasoning and coding skills is.
Yeah.
The model can take a simple instruction, think through all the pieces and logic needed to make the game work, and then generate the actual code to bring it to life.
Hmm.
It's not just spitting out random lines. It's understanding the big picture and designing a complete solution.
So it's not just code completion, it's actual software creation.
Exactly. It's way more intelligent and holistic.
Yeah. Now, Gemini 2.5 isn't all about this new thinking and coding stuff.
Right.
It also builds on what made its predecessors great, especially that native multimodality and that huge context window.
Oh, yeah, the context window. We hear that a lot in AI, Darwin.
We do.
Yeah.
Why is that so important when you're dealing with really complex stuff?
Well, think of the context window like the AI's working memory. It's how much information it can hold in its mind while it's responding to you or trying to solve a problem.
Okay.
A bigger context window means it can consider a ton more information, whether it's text, audio, images, video, even whole code libraries, and understand all the relationships within that data.
Right.
And that's crucial for tackling really complex challenges and keeping things coherent over longer conversations.
So it can keep track of more pieces of the puzzle.
Precisely. And Gemini 2.5 has a context window of 1 million tokens right now.
1 million.
Can you believe it? And they're planning to double that to 2 million soon. And what's amazing is that the performance doesn't drop off even with all that information. It's actually better than previous Gemini models.
That's incredible. Having that much memory opens up a whole world of possibilities for dealing with complex, information-heavy tasks.
It really does. And remember, all this power is becoming more accessible to developers and anyone who's interested.
Right. It's in Google AI Studio. It's for Gemini Advanced subscribers.
Right.
And it's coming to Vertex AI.
It is.
So Google is really pushing this out there.
They are. And what's great is that they're actively asking for feedback.
That's key.
Yeah, it's so important for refining and improving these AI models, especially as they evolve so rapidly. You got to make sure they're actually meeting people's needs.
For sure. It sounds like Gemini 2.5 is a huge step forward in AI's ability to reason, understand, and create.
It is.
Now, let's switch gears and explore the other major development that's got us so excited. OpenAI's GPT-4o and its integrated image generation.
All right, let's talk images.
Okay.
This is a really exciting development. OpenAI has always said that their ultimate goal was to have image generation as a core part of their language models. GPT-4o is the realization of that vision. And they're not just aiming for pretty pictures. They want image generation to be truly useful and a natural part of the AI experience.
I remember reading about this whiteboard session where they outlined their thinking behind this whole integration. What were the key takeaways there?
Yeah, so in that whiteboard session, they basically said they wanted to model text, pixels, which make up images,
Hmm.
and even sound using a single massive type of neural network called an autoregressive transformer. They saw a bunch of potential benefits in doing this, like being able
Yeah.
to generate images that are infused with all the knowledge the model already has,
Right.
significantly improving how text is rendered within images, and having the ability to learn new things right in the middle of a conversation. Native in-context learning. And then, of course, there's the potential for a more unified and efficient training process.
So a lot of advantages, but I'm guessing there were some challenges too.
Of course, they admitted to some initial hurdles, like how text and images are represented digitally in different ways, and the challenge of allocating computing resources efficiently across those different data types.
So how did they solve those problems?
Well, they came up with some clever solutions. Basically, they compress both the text and images into more manageable chunks of data, kind of like codes. Then, the main transformer network learns all the complex relationships and patterns between these codes.
Okay.
And finally, to create the actual image, they use a special decoder that takes those compressed image codes and turns them back into pixels, often using a technique called diffusion, which helps make the images look really realistic and detailed. They had this simple diagram that explained it, something like tokens match it, transformer match it, diffusion match it, pixels.
That helps visualize it.
Mm,
So that gives us a peek under the hood. But what does this mean for someone actually using GPT-4o?
right. Well, the material had some really cool examples, like that idea of using magnetic poetry on a fridge to create an image that captures a specific emotion or idea.
Hmm.
The whole "a picture's worth 1,000 words" thing.
I like that one.
It shows how this integration allows for a deeper connection between words and images. And then there was that funny little comic strip with a snail that wanted an S car. That showed the potential for creative storytelling right within the AI. And those examples, based on the Newton's Prism experiment infographic, they demonstrated how GPT-4o can generate informative visuals from different perspectives.
Yeah, that NASCAR was great. It wasn't just making an image, it was getting the joke and telling a visual story.
Exactly. The image generation isn't just tacked on, it's deeply tied to the model's understanding of language and context.
Hmm.
But the material also stresses the importance of useful image generation. Going beyond just make pretty pictures, it's about creating images that serve a purpose.
Right, like logos, diagrams, instructions, stuff like that.
Exactly. And that's where GPT-4o really shines. It's amazingly good at putting text into images, which is something a lot of AI image generators struggle with. It follows instructions precisely, and it uses all its existing knowledge and the context of the conversation to create what you're looking for. It can even analyze and transform images that you upload, or use them as inspiration for new creations.
Yeah, that accurate text rendering is huge. We've all seen those AI images where the text is just a jumbled mess.
Yeah, it's a big improvement. They trained it on a massive data set of images and text descriptions, so it learns how they relate to each other. And then they do this intense fine-tuning process called aggressive post-training.
Mm.
The result is really impressive. The images are smooth, consistent, and the AI really gets the context.
Oh.
They showed examples of realistic street signs, clear menus, even elegant invitations with perfect text. It's pretty remarkable.
Wow, and that multi-turn generation thing where you can refine an image through conversation, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Because image generation is built right into GPT-4o, you can have this fluid back and forth to tweak and refine an image. They had this example of designing a video game character.
Oh, yeah.
And you could just tell it to change the hair, the clothes, whatever, and it would do it while keeping everything consistent.
So it's like having a design partner.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
The material also mentioned improved instruction following, especially when it comes to handling lots of objects in a scene.
Right, I remember that.
They're saying that GPT-4o can handle prompts with a lot more objects, maybe 10 to 20, compared to the usual 5 to 8 that trip up other systems. They had this example of a grid with 16 different items on a white background, all neatly arranged. That shows the level of control and how well it connects the objects with their descriptions.
It's really impressive. And being able to upload images for in-context learning, that seems really intuitive.
Oh, it is. GPT-4o can analyze an image that you upload and then use that information to create something new.
Okay.
Like the style, the objects, even the composition. They had an example where someone wanted to design a vehicle with triangular wheels, and they uploaded pictures of triangles to guide the design. It's a really cool way to leverage visual input.
Yeah, that makes sense. It feels like GPT-4o is really leveraging its existing knowledge to make this image generation even more powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it understands both language and the visual world so well, it can create much more intelligent and relevant visuals. The examples they gave, things like generating images from code snippets, creating visual representations of cocktail recipes, making weather infographics, even designing whale identification guides, and illustrating matcha instructions.
Wow.
It all shows how it can connect words with images in a really meaningful and practical way.
It's amazing. And of course, we can't forget about the image quality itself. How's it doing on the photorealism and diverse styles front?
Well, because they trained it on such a wide range of image styles, GPT-4o is incredibly good at creating and transforming images across the spectrum. They showed examples that ranged from realistic, candid photos to artistic renderings and even abstract concepts.
Yeah.
The ability to imitate different photography styles like a blurry analog film look or
Yeah.
generate hyper-realistic scenes with imaginative elements, it's all there.
I loved those examples, like dolphins in a subway car and a fruit bowl filled with tiny planets. Those really showed the range of what it can do.
It's really fun to see.
But of course, no AI is perfect.
Right.
The material did mention some limitations that they're working on.
Oh yeah, OpenAI is very upfront about where they still need to improve. One issue is cropping. Sometimes longer images get cropped too tight. And then there's the occasional hallucination, where the AI might make up details that aren't actually there. And then there are the high binding problems, which is when you're trying to render lots of different concepts at once. It can still be a challenge. And they're still working on generating really precise graphs and getting multilingual text rendering perfect, especially for languages that don't use the Latin alphabet. They also mentioned improving editing precision within images and how small text is rendered when there's a lot of information crammed in.
It's good to see they're being transparent about those challenges.
Yeah, definitely.
And with all this image generation power, safety has got to be a big concern. What are they doing to address that?
It's absolutely a top priority. Every image that GPT-4o creates will include C2PA metadata, which is a standard that helps verify where the image came from.
Right.
It adds a layer of transparency and accountability. And they've built an internal tool to help trace the origin of content. Crucially, they're still blocking requests for images that go against their content policies. You know, things like CSAM, those non-consensual deepfakes. And they've put even stricter rules in place for generating images of real people, especially anything involving nudity or graphic violence.
I was really interested to see that they're using AI itself to help with these safety measures.
Right. They've learned a lot from working with language models, so they've trained a reasoning LLM to interpret their safety guidelines, which were written by humans.
Okay.
That helps them identify those gray areas in their policies and effectively moderate both the text prompts and the images that are generated. It's a continuation of the safety work they've already done with ChatGPT and Sora.
It's amazing to see how both Google and OpenAI are pushing AI forward.
Yeah.
You know, with Gemini 2.5 focusing on enhanced reasoning and coding, while GPT-4o is all about that integrated and powerful image generation.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Two different approaches, but both making huge strides.
Absolutely. Both are clearly big wins in the evolution of AI.
Yep.
I mean, the potential impact across all sorts of fields is just enormous. Scientific discovery, software development, creative expression, even how we communicate every day.
The possibilities are endless.
They really are. As we wrap up this deep dive, it makes you think. What stands out to you as the most intriguing aspect of all this? Is it that thinking power of Gemini 2.5? Or that seamless image generation of GPT-4o?
It's hard to choose, honestly.
And what about our listeners? How do you think these advancements will change how they interact with AI?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
I'm honestly blown away by both of these developments. Gemini 2.5's progress in reasoning,
Right.
that feels like a crucial step toward AI that can truly collaborate with us on these complex intellectual problems.
Yeah.
But then GPT-4o's seamless integration of such high-quality image generation that unlocks all these new possibilities for visual communication, creativity, and even more intuitive ways to process information. I have a feeling we'll see these strengths merge down the line, leading to AI that can reason at a deeper level and interact with us in much richer ways. It's an exciting time to be following AI, that's for sure.
It is. And to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to check out these technologies yourselves.
Yeah.
Google AI Studio, ChatGPT, there are platforms out there where you can experience this firsthand. It's truly remarkable.
It is.
And remember, the AI journey is just beginning. The future is wide open and full of potential.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
We'll see you then.